Welcome to a Friday edition of The Sweat. I'm your host, Jesse Cofield, and we have a stacked show for you today. All right, 2 NBA playoff games that we got to talk about, plus what went down last night. Our panel's going to weigh in on that, a full MLB slate, and more playoff games to talk about on the ice. But first, we got to start with the NFL schedule release going down yesterday. The Titans, come on. They won. They won social media yesterday with this release video. The Jags, or should I say the Chester Cheetos, leaned into the scripted narrative. Patriots still living in the past with their retired stars in a fun retirement house. The biggest news of yesterday was probably Brady officially retiring. Like, we knew he was retired, but now he's really retired. A couple head scratchers thrown in there. A lot of great content, though. Jeff, which one was your favorite, and why was it the Titans?
So the Titans definitely in the top three. I mean, the main thing with these release videos, Jesse, you can't expect me to watch an 8-minute, 10-minute release video where you go through and have every person on your team do a little cameo. I don't need to see every long snapper you have or backup offensive lineman. You got to keep it short and simple. This is the internet. This is Twitter. So the Jets, shout out to the Jets, bringing in a ringer. This guy who can apparently just guess the cities by like showing him a piece of concrete from the city. Absolutely riveting stuff. Took 2 minutes, went through every city. I absolutely loved it. The Chargers, I mean, at this point, they're just in a class by themselves. I don't know where they get these anime videos or ideas, but absolutely just rabbit hole. And the Titans, just simple, couple minutes, little bites, showing the just general lack of basic football knowledge of the general public. Those are the top three. I mean, the rest, whatever. Like, you know, the good teams don't need, like the Bengals and the Chiefs didn't do anything special. They're good. But these other teams stepping it up, Tennessee, Chargers, and even the Jets, shout out.
Yeah, Steve, the Colts video was like 10 minutes long. I was like, it's like that meme that's like, I ain't reading all that, but good for you, or I'm sorry that happened.
That's literally where I was gonna go with this, and I'm actually shocked that you brought up that comparison, because I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched any of them. I don't give a crap about any of this stuff. When I saw this was the first question for today, I said, well, here's not anything you're gonna get from me. Gojo put out like a really solid chart of who had the best ones. I'll just trust what he said, and whatever's at the top and whatever's at the bottom, that's the ranks for me. It's just like Black Friday. Just because you push it on me doesn't mean I have to celebrate or be part of it. I'm not going to go shopping at 4 a.m. to get a pair of crappy jeans that my kid's not going to wear 1 week after Christmas to begin with anyway. So I could do nothing with the release videos, the schedule. I'll just read it and figure out what it is. But the videos, give me a break. Nope, don't want any of it.
Okay, fair enough. Although there were some absolute gems in the Titans video.
I'm sure that it was a banger. I'm not watching it.
Yeah. All right, fine. Fair enough. All right. But, here's something you will talk about, Steve. The actual schedules. Okay, let's talk about the actual schedules. We knew the Seahawks would travel the most, right? Like, we knew the strength of schedules. But, Steve, did anybody's schedule perhaps change your thoughts, like solidify them, either going over or under their win total, or was it just same old stuff you already knew?
I haven't read one schedule. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
The Eagles schedule definitely raised some eyebrows here. The over-under for their win total on DraftKings Sportsbook is set at 10.5. The over is juiced at -150, while the under is at +130. They're going to come out of the gates looking hot, and they're going to look like the team that everybody expects them. After that bye is where it gets really, really ugly. And I think we're going to see a tale of two different teams. Like, if you look at their schedule between weeks 1 and 8, Patriots, Vikings, Rams, the Commanders twice. But then after that bye, KC, Buffalo, San Francisco, the Dallas Cowboys for the second time. And then they face the Giants twice within 3 weeks in weeks 16 and 18. Those could be huge games in that division if we think the Giants are going to be as good as, a lot of people are expecting them to be. So over under 10.5, people are going to be like, oh, this was a piece of cake in the first half of the season. All of a sudden, I think they're going to be sweating bullets in that second half. So I actually kind of lean on the under on this one here, because I really think that second half is going to be a doozy for them.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing to point out. Obviously, all the teams that are good, they have the stronger schedule, so it's always something to keep in mind. I mean, and you're not getting any kind of, you're not going to get a lower number with the Eagles. I mean, they are absolutely just stacked top to bottom. But One team that one conference, I should say, one division that stood out was the AFC East. I mean, I think there's a couple different things to look at here. The Dolphins were really interesting. I was already kind of interested in the Dolphins. They're third in the division odds. They've revamped their defense with Vic Fangio, but the Dolphins only have one game in December where they're going to have to go outside. The rest are in Miami. I think that's huge for Miami. I mean, this has been a team that historically in that time of year, they just don't do it. There's not a cold weather team. I mean, they're just not used to practicing in it. The guys don't train in it at all at any time in the season. It's just not something that they coach around. They have a wide open style of game as well that's kind of built to playing in warm weather. So I think that the fact that Dolphins have one game, now it is in Baltimore and they got to travel to Baltimore, but the rest of the games in December are at home. I think that's a big, just a help to them as well. So I'm looking at the Dolphins schedule. I think it's beneficial to them. Again, I mean, if you already like the team and you think the schedule helped them, that's fine. Or if you didn't like it and you think the schedule's against them, that's good. The Patriots are another one, just a brutal schedule there. We could talk about that for a bit, but man, do they ever have a tough opener. It is not hard to see the Patriots going 0-4 out of the gate. I mean, they're going to be underdogs, I think, in every game there.
Yeah, any team maybe get like a rough deal in terms of days of rest. Like Chiefs, week 15 versus Pats. They play the Bills the week before on Sunday. Pats play Thursday the week before. Then the Bills get a bye before the Chiefs game and 11 days before the Bengals. Like, any of these sticking out to you, thinking maybe you want to get an early line on any of those games?
I mean, there's a ton of rest spots. I mean, we could go through the schedule and just, like look at everything. But I think, you can kind of pick and choose your spots. I mean, the Colts certainly have a stretch where they're going to play like 4 road games in 5 weeks. I mean, for a team that's probably going to be starting a rookie quarterback, that's going to be rough. Looking down the list, I mean, like the Titans have 3 road games. This is one spot I picked out. This one was just for Emerson specifically. But week 11, the Jaguars are going to be taking on the Titans. The Titans are going to be playing 3 road games in 4 weeks coming in. It's still a pretty short line. It's Jags -5. I mean, this is a spot again. We're not expecting the Titans to be great. They may be starting Will Levis at this point. Like that's a pretty short line for a Jags team that's supposed to be pretty good. So the Titans kind of stuck out there in the middle of the season as well. And then the Patriots, another one I picked out, week 4 against Dallas. The line is only +3.5 right now. I think that's going to get a lot bigger. Again, the Patriots, 3 tough games to open, and then they have to go to Dallas, and it's only a 3.5 line. That one makes no sense to me if we're looking at game lines right now.
Steve, another one we were looking at, Chiefs get a bye and an extra day before the Eagles on Monday night.
Yeah, this one doesn't necessarily have to do with rest, but in week 5, when the Jaguars take on the Bills, the Jags will already be in their second week in England, having their tea, pip, pip, hooray, where Buffalo is coming in to face the Jaguars, coming from Buffalo the week prior. So the Buffalo plays their game against the Dolphins, then they fly to England to play that one there. Jaguars are +3.5 on the spread in this one there. And if we remember from last season, Jacksonville was one of the strongest underdog teams against the spread last season. They were 9-5 against the spread as an underdog, covered by an average of 6.5 points. So while this one necessarily doesn't have to do with rest, the Jaguars are going to be all settled in England, whereas Buffalo is going to be the team that's coming in and getting ready and playing that early morning game on Sunday, I think at 9:30 in the morning. So I think that's a spot you could potentially look at as well.
Emerson would be thrilled for the Chester Cheetos to come out on top there. Any futures or teams to make the playoff bets that you're looking at right now, Steve?
Yeah, I think we're looking at that schedule. I think it solidifies the Saints as the favorite to win the NFC South. You can give them at +110 as of right now. They have the easiest schedule by strength of schedule there, projected at 9.5 wins on the season after going 7-10 last year. But if you look at their schedule for this upcoming season, I mean, the teams that they're facing had a combined winning percentage at .427. Absolutely putrid schedule from top to bottom. The Falcons are in the same realm as well. They have one of the easiest schedules as well. But I think it's fair to say that the Saints have the better team coming into this season. Obviously, the upgrade at quarterback with Derek Carr. They didn't really upgrade anything at wide receiver, which is a little questionable at best. But bringing in Jamal Williams too as well, I think there's definitely some good things you can like about the Saints this upcoming year.
Jeff, most bet Super Bowl winners since 8 p.m. last night. By bets, Eagles, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, Jets. By handle, Bengals, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, Jets. Not super surprising.
No, I don't think that the schedule really caused any difference. Those are just the teams that people just bet. The good teams that people know that, the casual bettor is going to go and just bet on it. And I mean, some of those are going to be fine. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be good again. Doesn't matter what their schedule is. They're the Chiefs. But in terms of, things that kind of stood out to me again, I come back to the Dolphins. I think that's a pretty beneficial schedule for them. They're plus 310 right now to win that division. A lot of the talk on social media and just in the media in general, how tough the schedule is for the Jets off the top. The Jets have a brand new quarterback, first time in a new system, playing under a different coach. Rough start for them. The Bills have a pretty tough schedule as well. We didn't really get into them too much, but I don't really love it for them. I think the Dolphins, again, a plus 310, they got a little bit of benefit there from the schedule. And then also just a shout out here to the NFC West. I think that the Seahawks win total at 8.5. They have a soft schedule to open. 3 teams that weren't playoff teams last year. It's a little dicey in the back end, but San Francisco has a bit of concerns for me. So I think Seattle is absolutely fine to take over 8.5. I think the schedule, if anything, is like a slight benefit to them. So a couple teams I'm looking at there that mid-tier teams you'd call in Miami and Seattle that maybe actually helped out a little bit by the scheduling.
All right, thanks, guys. Good stuff. Appreciate it. Steve, stick around. We're talking baseball next. But a long way to opening kickoff. We know that in the NFL. But the breakdowns, they do not stop coming, especially for Michael Lombardi and our guy Femi. So Lombardi had an interesting tidbit on the Colts' Anthony Richardson and DeAndre Swift on this week's GM Shuffle. Take a look.
I like Gibbs. Laporte's a good player for the. I think at the end of the day, the Lions. Maybe you don't like the order. And they know something about Swift that we don't know, right? They gave Swift away. Think about this. They traded Swift to Philadelphia for essentially a 5th-round pick. Because when you boil it all down between the comp picks in the 3rd round, I mean, so that means nobody was offering anything for Swift. Because when you're taking Philly's pick for Swift, you're basically, there's nobody else out there. Because if Pittsburgh would have offered a 4th, they would have taken that. If Jacksonville would have offered a 4th, they would have taken it. If anybody would have offered a 4th, they would have taken it. They know something that we don't know about. I love Swift. I think it's a great get for Philly, but there's more than meets the eye here. And so Detroit knows something that you just can't criticize them for.
Do you think they know something that we don't know, or it's just based on his inability to stay on the field?
I think they know something about why has his inability to stay on the field. Like, for example, I was told that one of the concerns about Richardson, whether this is true or not, was he has tight hamstrings. Okay. Well, that means he's prone to having hamstrings. So, I mean, I'm sure that the Colts did a lot of homework on that and made sure that's clean. But you got to make sure, sometimes there's some things that keep a guy from getting on the field, whether it's arthritis, whether it's a turf toe. I can remember being in New England. We took Byron Stork. He was a really good offensive lineman from Florida State. But the doctors kept saying he's not going to be able to stay with that foot. And after a year and a half, he couldn't do it. Same thing, we took a receiver the next year in the 4th round from Georgia, and the same thing happened. Like the doctors say, hey, this guy's not going to last very long. And they end up being right. Sometimes they're wrong, but when they're right, they're right.
All right, it's time to talk baseball. And if you are building your DFS lineup for this evening, take a look at the top priced hitters on the slate for today, Friday, May 12th. The most expensive dude on there, Ronald Acuna Jr., going to cost you $6,300. Everybody up there is over $6K. So do you need them in your lineups? I don't know. Let's bring in DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Gary Thorne, and RotoWire's Eric Halterman for MLB batting practice. All right, Steve, like I said, this is batting practice, not long toss, okay? So we're going to look at the best hitting plays tonight. Steve, who is the best DFS hitter that you need in your lineup?
I miss the days when 6K for a hitter didn't even exist, but this is, inflation. Everything keeps going up, including DFS prices. But give me Nick Castellanos at Coors Field tonight at 5,200 going up against the lefty Austin Gomber. Castellanos against lefties so far this season has a 423 WOBA and a 166 WRC+. You look at Gomber, doesn't really enjoy pitching at Coors Field so far this season. 15 runs on 19 hits through just 12 2/3 innings at home already. 6 home runs allowed on the year. Hopefully nothing bad happens tonight, because if it does, that means Castellanos is going yard. So 5,200 for him tonight at Coors Field.
All right, Gary and Steve is not even touching that 6K price range. What do you think? You want to do it?
I've got the same guy written down. So I'll kind of expand on this. I think obviously the Phillies are going to be incredibly popular tonight. As Steve mentioned, Austin Gomber, really bad at Coors Field. Opponents have a 450 WOBA off Austin Gomber when he's pitching at Coors in 2023. That's insane. So you're going to have to get a little creative with how you stack this team. I think Castellanos has to be at the center of all of those stacks, but I'm talking, Gomber's left-handed, but he's also been terrible against lefties, so don't feel like you can't use a Kyle Schwarber. Don't feel like you can't use Bryce Harper, even like Bryson Stott, if he's still leading off against the lefty tonight. Someone like Edmundo Sosa has been fantastic against left-handed pitching. He's got a 199 WRC plus within the split. So maybe instead of stacking the top 4 hitters in the Phillies lineup, you're stacking their 9th hitter with their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Like, you just have to change it up a little bit because for obvious reasons, this is a very good stack.
Yeah, Eric, please tell me you have somebody different.
Yeah, well, these two have talked up my Phillies enough. I don't think I need to do that anymore.
Okay.
I'll talk up somebody from the team who lost a couple games to the Phillies in the World Series. We won't talk about the other games, but Yordan Alvarez and really any of his Astros teammates I like tonight against Michael Kopech, who's got a 5.97 ERA and ERA estimators that are also all sitting in the 5s. He's just not doing anything all that right. Strikeout rate of 21.2% is close to league average, and it's combined with a 13% walk rate. Not a lot of ground balls either. Kopech's just not doing anything well. Hasn't really done anything well as a starter, so I like as many Astros as I can fit in. Yordan Alvarez at 6,000, Kyle Tucker 5,300. Alvarez is the headliner, though. This is a somewhat shaky first month plus, and he's still hitting 288 or 283, 388, 558. When you do that in a period where you've had a week or two where people were a little worried and you had some injuries during spring training and you're still coming out and putting these numbers, I'm very confident in him tonight against a pitcher like Kopech.
All right, Gary, and take us down the board here. Okay, we need a value DFS hitter. Who are you looking at?
I'm going to go with Josh Young. He's $3,900 tonight, just crushing left-handed pitching. A 441 isolated power within the split. It's just a 35 plate appearance sample, but we saw a little bit of this from Young in his call-up cup of coffee in 2022. Strikeouts are sometimes an issue, but when he makes contact, his expected WOBA on those batted ball events is through the roof. One other thing to like about Young in this matchup, and, in real life, it's kind of a flaw, but in DFS, you'll take it every time. The man does not walk. Like, if you put Josh Young into a lineup, you're not getting like, oh, he got 4 DraftKings points because he walked twice. No. He's either going for 0 or 16. Like, this guy is going to hit a home run. Ken Waldachuk, not very good. His ERA up over 7. The ERA estimators back that up. Oakland's bullpen also pretty underwhelming. I just think in general, you're going to have great matchups for Young all night long.
All right, Eric, we need some value here. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, let's go with Luis Garcia, not the injured Astros pitcher or any of the various minor leaguers, but the infielder for the Nationals. He's at 3,300, which makes him, is he the most expensive National? If not, he's one of the most expensive Nationals yet again against Tyler McGill, who's got a 4.33 ERA for the Mets, but the ERA estimator is sitting in the mid-5s. Everything looks pretty shaky for him. 17% walk rate against an 11.5, or 17% strikeout rate against an 11.5% walk rate for McGill. Luis Garcia hasn't done much before this season, just a 691 OPS, but he doesn't even turn 23 until next week. So we can forgive some forgettable performances. And the overall numbers are still forgettable this year, but he's cut his strikeout rate, which was sitting north of 20% last season. It's down to 9.1% this year. So far, just a 264 batting average, but when you have a single-digit strikeout rate, you're going to hit for a very high average going forward. I think that's enough to make him interesting as a cheap option, maybe alongside some cheap teammates here against Tyler McGill.
Steve, who is a cheap hitter with big upside for you?
Yeah, I'll take Josh Bell at 3,100 going up against Tyler Anderson and the Angels. Bell has a 382 WOBA and a 146 WRC plus against lefties so far. And then you got Tyler Anderson not exactly looking like the pitcher the Angels expected when they signed him away from the Dodgers during the offseason there. 5.40 ERA, and his expected ERA is basically identical, 5.42. Ground balls are down, fly balls are up. That's usually not a good sign for a pitcher. Josh Bell's been kind of holding his own. I mean, his numbers across the board aren't great overall, but he's still hitting lefties fairly well. 3,100 should be hitting in the heart of that Guardians lineup tonight. So I think Josh Bell can give you some good value at the first base position.
All right, let's mosey on over to the DK Sportsbook. Eric, hit me with your favorite hitter prop for this evening.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in that same lineup. Go with Jose Ramirez to go over 1.5 total bases. That's at plus 105. And the logic here is pretty similar. Half of what I was going to say was the same thing Steve just said about Tyler Anderson being a pitcher you want to use hitters against. So we won't add too much there. But Jose Ramirez, to get 2 total bases, he needs to do it just less than half of the time to make this plus 105 price look good. He's done it just over half the time this season, 16 of 30 games. He's making a ton of contact, cut his strikeout rate to the single digits as well. When you hit the ball that often, and Tyler Anderson is somebody who lets hitters hit the ball often as well. I really doubt Ramirez is going to strike out here. He's going to put the ball in play a lot. He just needs either 2 of those hits to find a hole or 1 extra base hit, and he has plenty of power to reach this prop that route as well.
Steve, which hitter prop are you looking at?
Yeah, Gary was just singing his praises a minute ago, but I had Josh Young to go over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs at minus 115. Like Gary said, just absolutely decimating left-handed pitching so far on the year. He already gave all the numbers there. Gary mentioned he doesn't walk either, so he's going to be making plenty of contact when he's at the plate as well. He's gone over this number of 1.5 hits, runs, and RBI 54% of the season in 19 of the 35 games that he has played. He has just been an on-base machine, whether it's scoring runs, gathering hits, knocking in runs. He has been awesome in this bet all season long. So kind of like what Gary said, I think he's in a great play tonight, both for DFS and for the sportsbook side.
All right, Gary, what do you think?
So these guys have taken the positive route with hitter props. I'm going to take a negative route.
Yeah.
Dalton Varsho over 1.5 strikeouts at plus 180.
That's
is a
not nice.
Huge number. Huge number. And really, this isn't even about Dalton Varsho. It's about Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider has struck out 44% of the left-handed batters he has faced so far this season. Varsho is hitting high enough in the Blue Jays lineup where he will likely get 3 plate appearances against Spencer Strider. To me, at plus 180, the odds of him striking out in 2 of those 3 appearances are pretty high, considering that Varsho, while he's been hot lately, has struggled against elite fastball velocity all season long. I just think this is a lot of juice for a prop where Spencer Strider is on the mound on the other side of this.
All right, Steve, which game do you like to go over the run total tonight? Cubs, Twins, and Reds, Marlins have the smallest total sitting at 7.5.
Yeah, Cleveland and LA, 8.5 runs feels a bit low for me when you consider the pitching matchup that we have on tap. I already talked about Tyler Anderson and his 5.42 expected ERA, which almost is identical to his actual ERA. Then Logan Allen, he's only made 3 starts so far, but 2.70 ERA, that's not too shabby. 5.67 expected ERA. In this Angels lineup, we know they can mash. Maybe they're not the flashiest team on paper, but they've been hitting runs and they've been doing well at hitting the over all throughout the year. So minus 120 on the over for 8.5 runs, but I was expecting this to be at 9.5. So I was pleasantly surprised to see 8.5 for this one.
Gary, and which game is going over?
So we've talked a lot about Josh Young. I think the Rangers might be able to cover this 8.5 total by themselves against the Athletics. Kind of surprised this isn't a 9.5, honestly. Texas, not only have they been arguably the second best lineup in baseball behind the Rays so far this season, specifically they have crushed left-handed pitching. They have a 125 WRC plus as a team against Southpaws. I talked about Waldichuk, the fact his ERA up over 7. His FIP also up over 7. That is a bad sign. And to the Athletics' credit, they've actually hit all right this season, and they've been at their best also against left-handed pitching. They have a 106 WRC plus as a team within the split. And Martin Perez, not a strikeout guy, high contact rate, coming off giving up 7 earned runs in his last start. I don't need Oakland to score 7, but if they can score 2 or 3, I'm pretty confident Texas can do the rest.
All right, Eric, which of these is going over the run total?
Yeah, maybe this is a dumb prediction because it involves the Royals lineup and Corbin Burns, but I'm going to pick Royals Brewers going over 8.5. That's at -110. Most of that is because on the other side, it's going to be an opener situation, maybe a bullpen game. Josh Taylor filling in for Ryan Yarbrough, although it's not as if I would be all that worried about the Brewers offense against Ryan Yarbrough. Brewers offense hasn't been anything amazing, but with Josh Taylor probably starting off and then maybe Max Castillo, there's not a lot on the Kansas City side. It's Corbin Burns on the other side, but Corbin Burns hasn't really been Corbin Burns this year. Not pitching like an ace. He's been fine, but a 3.86 ERA with ERA estimators as high as 4.53 for his Sierra. His walk rate sitting about league average. His ground ball rate is right about where it was, but he's not getting the strikeouts. He's always been a guy who gets 30% strikeout rate or even well above. This year, he's just under 20%. So if he's not missing bats like he's used to, if he's just pitching like a normal good starter, and we've got a very shaky situation on the other side, I think with this one could easily get to 9 runs.
Good stuff, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to talk NBA next. And Kevin Hart, die-hard Sixers fan, was not very happy with last night's result, the Celtics forcing a Game 7. And he dropped by the compound on this week's Starting Five and talked a little bit about some thoughts he has on the Celtics star duo.
You don't have prosthetic legs. Would you do prosthetic legs?
No.
Real calves.
No. This is, I'm 100% real. I'm not Jerry.
All right.
My calves are real.
I just want. I had to put it out there.
I also question that you challenge Tatum's hairline. Anybody playing against Tatum, rub your finger against his hairline real fast. If it doesn't shift, then I'm a liar. If it doesn't shift, then I'm a liar. Okay?
We're going to keep going back to this?
I'm just telling you what I know.
I just want to know we're going to keep going back to this.
I'm just telling you what I know.
All right.
This has nothing to do with the Celtics being in the same conference as the Sixers and our rivalry. This is
about hair care in the NBA.
Stating facts.
All right, all good.
You feel like the celebrity game, they got to take it a little more seriously.
Jaylen Brown also got his face done. That's why he's wearing that mask.
Got his face done.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He got his face done.
What about Joel? Joel wore the mask.
No, he didn't.
Wait.
You don't know what you're talking
He
about.
wear the mask.
He did not wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
He was the first
Speculation because he thought that it was actually to save face and actually protect his situation. With Jaylen Brown is protecting plastic surgery recovery.
He got his face done.
He got his face done. He took tissue from his ass.
Yo.
He did.
The propaganda.
I need some of this.
The propaganda.
He took tissue from his ass and put it in his cheekbone. There it is. I got cats out the bag.
I just gotta go. I gotta keep it going, man. It's a lot
Go ahead,
of
do what
it's a
you
lot
gotta
of
do.
subjects that.
I just
can't
need
even-
to know if it's going to improve
Go ahead.
3-point shooting. That's all I care about. If the
What, getting his face done?
look good, feel good, play good. Is that how it's?
Either you're gonna be better at 3-point shooting, or you're gonna smell all day. 'Cause you got. Sorry.
It's okay. No, we can
Push the matter.
I don't even know where to go now. We gotta go somewhere. We gotta go somewhere else.
Go wherever you want.
DraftKings presents the Starting Five live from the compound.
All right, we had a couple Stanley Cup playoff results coming our way last night. Carolina winning the series and moving on. The Kraken and the Stars still at it. The Stars leading 3-2. So let's bring in our NHL panel. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, RotoWire's Paul Bruno. Fellas, Carolina wrapping up the series against the Devils. They're the clear favorites to win it all now, despite their injuries. We saw the Stars taking the 3-2 lead. What do you think, Jeff? Did we finally see the Kraken's reliance on balance fail here as some of the Stars' big name dudes really, went out and produced?
Yeah, the big name dudes definitely produced, and that the big name dudes is where the Stars had the edge from the beginning, right? I mean, you look up and down this Seattle lineup. I mean, they don't even have a couple of their top wingers, and they've still been able to get where they've been. But they've been very reliant on goaltending in the back end. Grubauer's been performing above expectation. Started out poorly last night. You kind of saw what happened. Like the Stars just kind of took control. They did have a bit of a lapse, but even with that, we're still able to win quite handily. So I'm expecting at some point in this series that it was going to tilt towards Dallas's favor. Not shocked that it happened last night. Seattle's a great story. They are shorthanded right now. Like, they do have an excuse here, and I'm not suggesting they're going to come out and just flail away Game 6 and give it away, but this feels like too big a mountain to climb at this point. I think this one is pretty much done. The Stars are a good team, and they're healthy, and they've got everything clicking. So good run by the Kraken, but I fully expect that series to end in Game 6.
Paul, do you agree the Stars are running away with this one?
Yeah, I think the lights are just about out on the Cinderella story that is Seattle. Look, the Kraken outshot the Stars by a 31-21 margin, so that was a good indicator, but they were stymied by the best goalie remaining in the western side of the playoff bracket, and that's Jake Ottinger. He was definitely the Stars MVP in this series, and I assume that they will be eventually prevailing as he figures to give them a huge edge over whoever comes through on the Oilers Knights series. So that's something to watch going forward. But I look at the other game too, and I guess I was right yesterday with the call that I made there. Take the parlay on the Canes to win and keep it under 5.5. So that was a nice payoff for those who listen. It just seems they were able to keep the dynamic offense of their younger opponents under wraps in this series, keeping them under 2 goals or less for 4 of the 5 games, and that was a telltale sign. So Carolina really playing well, and now they get to sit back and wait for the winner of Florida and Toronto. I hope that takes another week or so, and they'll have home ice in that series too. So things are looking very good for the Canes to go deeper into the postseason.
Yeah, Paul, it's do or die time. Game 5 for the Maple Leafs here. Panthers leading the series 3-1. What's the best DFS play in this one?
Well, look in the last game, 2 of the Leafs' big 4, Nylander and Marner, hit the score sheet, and they looked very good. I look for another of those members to have a big game tonight, and that's Austin Matthews. He's played well in this series, but has not yet scored, and he hasn't gone more than 4 games without a goal more than a couple of times in his career. So I expect that he's going to break through, and he's getting 18 shots on goal in 4 games. That's 4.5 per tilt. So I think he builds on that total, and he's going to hit the twine tonight and have a big impact on tonight's game. So I'd pay the $8,900. In fact, that's a price tag that's moved down as the series has progressed. So you get him at a bit of a discount over what he started out at this series. Clearly, I expect the Leafs win, and I'm also riding the goalie Joseph Woll. This figures to be a low-scoring game tonight, and probably the lowest scoring of the 2 games on the schedule too. So you got to grab your goalie win from this contest. If you believe in the Leafs, you take Woll. If you believe in Florida, you got Bobrovsky.
Jeff, who do you believe in?
I love that Paul's laying it all out there, going with the Leafs. But I do agree that this is probably going to be lower scoring, and I think that he's dead on with the goaltender. I am unfortunately going to go against Paul and suggest that it's probably going to be Florida you want to target. And for DFS, I think Matthews is still fine. He's gonna have the shot volume. But if you're looking further down, this is where the Florida Panthers depth just comes into play. I mean, the Maple Leafs just don't get any role scoring. There's really no one after like Tavares on the Leafs that you really want to roster here. But on the other side of it, you've got a guy like Sam Reinhart, who's 5,000. He's playing over 20 minutes a night. You can certainly pair him with your center there if you want. But just from a strictly DFS perspective, Reinhardt's great. I mean, he does everything for the Panthers. He plays in a lot of pivotal situations. 5 shots and a goal in the last game. I mean, he's pretty much capable of doing that on a nightly basis. He's been just a timely goal scorer for them. So Reinhart to me is like the kind of key here, the guy that I'd really want to build around from a Panthers perspective. Certainly getting up to Matthew Tkachuk as well, if you really believe in the Panthers, is something you could do. But I think this one will be lower scoring, and I'd be looking to more load up on the other game and just kind of pick and choose from Florida and Toronto.
Oh, yeah, you want to load up here because your Oilers are still alive, Jeff. All tied up 2-2, Game 5 tonight. So just tell us who you're putting in the Oilers in your lineup. You're loading up.
You're going to be a fool to fade Connor McDavid tonight. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Not happy camper. After that Alex Pietrangelo slash, he's coming tonight. He is absolutely peeved. And then his defenseman, who is coming in to protect his teammates, also got thrown out for a game. Now you're going to see vintage Connor McDavid, and I think what that's going to lead to is a really good game again for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. We have not seen Ryan Nugent-Hopkins much this series. He popped up in Game 3, and this is bad news if he gets going for the Vegas Golden Knights, because the Oilers have been kind of relying on Leon Draisaitl to carry them, and if Nugent-Hopkins gets going with McDavid, this one's all but over, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. If McDavid has a big night, Nugent-Hopkins will benefit, plays on his wing. He had 2 points in the last game, and at 5,300, again, love that duo going into tonight. I think you're going to see a big game from both of them.
All right, Paul, who are you snapping up for your DFS lineup in this one?
Well, McDavid costs the big bucks. I'm going to save $1,500 and go to Leon Draisaitl. He's in a massive slump, having been limited to only 1 assist in his last 2 games. Of course, I'm being facetious. This guy's got 13 goals in 10 games overall in the playoffs. and he's due to hit the score sheet again. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, and look for the big German to have a big factor in this game. Both teams will be missing a top blue liner on each side, with Nurse and Pietrangelo serving suspensions. So I think it's going to be a shootout. All the big shooters should be in play. I'm going to look at a couple of guys on Vegas squad, though. Marchessault at $4,900, Barbashev $3,200. They've combined for 5 goals in this series as the first line wingers alongside Jack Eichel, who's had a big part of the offensive force that is coming Edmonton's way. He's got 5 points on 18 shots on the Oilers net as well. So look for the Vegas frontline players to do their part in making this a high-scoring game too. I know Jeff's on Edmonton. I might suggest Vegas sneaks away with a victory tonight.
All right, Paul, let's go to the sports book to wrap things up. Best bet for Florida-Toronto, what is it?
Look, if you think, as I do, the Leafs are going to break out, then the puck line bet at plus 140 is in play. If you're on the Panthers, it's the money line at plus 145. It's pretty much one or the other. Toronto scored only 2 goals in each of their last 6 games played. They're overdue for an offensive outburst as one of the league's top offenses, so I'd be looking at them to put a big number on the board tonight, finally.
Jeff, what are you looking at?
I'm just going to take the Panthers here. It's plus 145. It's more of a value proposition than anything. I do think this will be a close game again, just like game 4. But I mean, the Panthers, just a deeper lineup. They've just been getting more depth scoring, and that's kind of what decides these close games. We saw it in the Carolina game as well. Panthers have just been really underrated all season. You got Matthew Tkachuk just playing out of his mind. I think that's going to happen again. And as much as I do like the move to Joseph Woll, I just, I mean, it's still a tough spot for a guy playing his first playoffs. So give me the Panthers here, just straight up money line. Don't hate the under here either, though, as well.
All right, Jeff, Oilers, Golden Knights. I know you're taking the Oilers here.
I'm taking the Oilers, but I mean, I'm also taking the over. I mean, I think this is going to be an absolute shootout. I know we've kind of have a little bit of letdown. I mean, the people who took the over in the 5-1 game 3 are still just not understanding how that didn't hit. But again, Paul mentioned this, 2 top defensemen out tonight. Everything's on the line. Vegas, I'm not writing Vegas off here, but, again, like, they can score, but they just can't score at the same rate as the Oilers. I think the other bet here to make, if you're interested in the total, is just Oilers over 3.5 goals. Again, the Golden Knights, Aiden Hill, Laurent Brossoit. I know Stuart Skinner hasn't been good, but still a slight edge there for Edmonton. Give me the money line here on Edmonton. Give me the over for the game total, and give me the over on the Oilers 3.5 goals as well.
All right, Paul, what are we giving you?
I'm going with the Oilers on the puck line. That's the only place where I see value in terms of basic game lines. I don't like that 7 number for the total goals, even though we're expecting a shootout. It might not go that way, so I want to stay away from that. The money line doesn't pay much for either side. For a better value, I look for the player props, and Brian Nugent-Hopkins was mentioned before. He finally hit the score sheet. I think he's going to do it again tonight. Pick him to get 2 points or more and pay at plus 170 here.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you so much. Your work here is done. Coming up next, we talk about tonight's NBA playoff games to wrap up the show. We'll be right back. Last night, the Celtics forced a Game 7 in Philly, and the Nuggets closed out the Suns. 2 more playoff games tonight, so let's bring in DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer, Tanner Kern, and RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Fellas, like you just heard me say, Celtics survived despite a ridiculously hot and cold game from Tatum. Nuggets moving on to the Western Conference Final. Nick F., what was your biggest takeaway from last night's games, and why was it that the Garden has been okay at best?
Well, I will say I was not surprised that the Celtics won last night's game. I did take them on the money line in that one. To me, though, the biggest takeaway has to be the Suns, who, as soon as they got Kevin Durant, everybody looked at them as they're the favorites to come out of the West. They're absolutely going to do it. I was one of those people who was not. Yes, I was buying in on the Clippers a little bit later in the season than maybe I should have. However, looking at the Nuggets right when the postseason started, I was like, this is the team that is going to come out of the West. And I know it's easy to say when it's the first seed, but Nikola Jokic and company are the real deal this year. They are going to get to the finals. I don't know if they're going to pull it off. However, you look at the Suns, I know that Paul was hurt, Ayton was hurt, but the second Ayton got ruled out, I looked at it as they have no chance. I just didn't expect it to be that much of a blowout.
All right, what was your biggest takeaway from last night, Tanner?
So it has to be Jason Tatum in the fourth quarter. The mental capacity and strength that it takes to be terrible for 3 straight quarters and then show up in the fourth and lead your team to a victory is pretty commendable on my part. It's very easy to score 30 points and then be great in the fourth quarter because you already have the momentum going. It's another thing to be terrible and then lead your team to a win. You look at Tatum after the game, he said humbly, I am one of the best players in the world, and he showed that last night. Now for the Celtics to advance, he needs to show up earlier than he has throughout the playoffs. He needs to be first, second, third, and fourth quarter Jason Tatum in this one, but still very impressed by him last night.
All right, Nick W., were you impressed last night by anything, or perhaps your takeaway is something that you were not impressed by?
I was not impressed by the 76ers, Jesse, not taking advantage of a golden opportunity to close this series out at home. I mean, Philly just completely laid an egg offensively. They put up 86 points last night in a home game, knowing that you don't want to go back to Boston for Game 7. Like Tanner said, props to Jason Tatum for kind of flipping the narrative completely in the fourth quarter. But I mean, Jason Tatum was 0 of 11 at one point in this game, and Philly was still down. I mean, not being able to take advantage of one of the 10 best players in the league at that point, having a disaster playoff game. I mean, Boston shot 42% from the field as a team, and that's with Jason Tatum, catching fire late in this game. I think we're going to look back on this. Boston, in my mind, probably wins Game 7, and we're going to say, man, Philly had a massive opportunity. If they play even a slightly below average game, they probably win by 10 last night. But, man, they had one of their worst efforts of the entire season from top to bottom.
All right, Tanner, Heat looking to close out the Knicks this evening. What is your best DFS play tonight for this one?
So I really like Kyle Lowry. He's priced at $6,600 because the boom rate's very high for him at home this season and in the playoffs so far. He has a 14-point performance and a 15-point performance at home, scoring-wise against the Knicks. So that's going to contribute to his fantasy points going up tonight. He shot 50% from 3 in both of those games. And also, when you look at the Miami Heat, they don't play very fast. They slow down the tempo. So I want a guy who's efficient from the field. And Lowry at home has been that guy. So he's going to take a secondary stance to Jimmy Butler. Obviously, he's not going to be your top pick on your lineup. He's going to be towards the bottom of the board there. But I do like him to have a good night.
Nick W., any concern about the fact that Jimmy Butler's on the injury report for this one?
Not really. He's been on the injury report, the entire series. I think, there's a case to be made that he's still not 100%, but it's Jimmy Butler, and he's going to keep pushing through it. So I'm not too worried about that. Looking at DFS plays for this game, I'm happy to pay for Jalen Brunson at $9,000. 61 and 58 DraftKings points over his last 2 games. He's been kind of the only constant, the only guy we could depend on to show up night to night for the New York Knicks. Like Tanner said, I like Kyle Lowry as well. Probably a little underpriced at this point at $5,200. And then, you got to fill out your lineup somehow. RJ Barrett, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but he's at $6,500. And if we're being realistic, he's a much better DFS player than he is, season-long player or even real-life player, because you don't really have to worry about the efficiency quite as much when we're playing DFS.
All right, Nick F., what is your best DFS play in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a value guy here. I actually have a couple of value guys tonight in general that I do like. But looking at the Knicks Heat game, specifically Max Strus, 4.9K. He's gotten a significant amount of shot opportunities since game 1. He only got up 6 in that one. I know he didn't shoot a whole heck of a lot in the Milwaukee series either, but that has changed a lot as this series has gone along. He's also a bit of a hustle guy too, and he can grab rebounds in a hurry, and that's how he can get you 30 DK fantasy points, which he has done in this series. And of course, role players play their best at home. That's been the case with Strus to start throughout this series.
All right, let's move on to Warriors Lakers. Nick W., what's the play in this one, and how concerned are you about the Anthony Davis thing?
I'm concerned. I know they're saying Anthony Davis is going to play. He's listed as probable. I think that's the expectation. But I know Anthony Davis is falling down to the floor 3 or 4 times per game. It feels like, but I don't think I don't think he was faking needing a wheelchair to get out of the last game 5. So I do think there's a chance that he's still not 100%, and obviously the Lakers need him at 100% capacity, and they need him to play as well as he possibly can on both ends to win this game. So it's a big concern. Obviously, I'm concerned about Andrew Wiggins on the Warriors side as well. I have a couple bargain options when it comes to DFS. I think we kind of know the big names here. There's not much to be said about Steph Curry and LeBron James, but Gary Payton III at $4,300 is one of my favorite plays tonight. I think this is somewhat of a hedge if Andrew Wiggins does not play or he's limited. I think Gary Payton's the clear guy who would see more minutes in that scenario. He's been really good since inserted into the starting lineup these last 2 games, just kind of working the baseline, seems to find himself open time and time again. He's got 22 and 24 DraftKings points in those last 2 games. And on the Lakers side, Dennis Schroeder at 4,200. One of my 5 least favorite players to watch in the entire league, just maddening at times, but 4,200 is a pretty good price for a guy who's seeing more minutes in this series as the Lakers go a little smaller.
All right, Nick F., they said Anthony Davis is not in concussion protocol, but I think it's safe to say he probably won't be 100%.
Yeah, I mean, and you know that I'm the biggest Anthony Davis basher that appears on the show. I will always say he's the most overrated superstar in the NBA, and I do think that puts Kevin Looney in play tonight at 4.7K. Obviously, he got us a little bit of value last game. Earlier in the season, earlier in the series, he popped off too for like over 40 DK fantasy points. So I think he is a good play tonight, but I am with Nick Whalen in this one. Gary Payton II is the guy to go with tonight. He's giving you 5x value on this price tag in the last 2 games. And as much as I know the Lakers took game 4 and you can't just go, there's no such thing as a moral victory, but at the same time, the Warriors, things have worked for them in the past couple games. They were a Lonnie Walker game away from being up in this series and getting ready to close this thing out. They're going to go with what's been working for them in the last couple games. That's relying more on Gary Payton.
All right, Tanner, some of these injuries maybe making you rethink who you want in your DFS lineup?
Yeah, so with Wiggins potentially out, being injured, I'm going to go with Klay Thompson here. I think he needs to have a huge game tonight. Game 6, Klay loading. Hopefully, we'll see if that happens. But Steph Curry has been the one guy on this team we can trust. The guy that needs to support him tonight for them to advance to the next game, at least, is Klay Thompson here, priced at $8,200. I really like what he did early in the series, specifically game 2. He was very efficient from the field. He contributed on the rebound again, the assist end, and he scored as well. That's something we haven't seen lately. But again, in game 6, when he needs a big performance for his team to force a game 7 here, I'm going to ride with him.
All right, let's move over to the DK Sportsbook. Need your best bet for this Knicks Heat game. Heat favored by 6. Where are you going, Nick F.?
Yeah, so I think the Heat are going to win tonight, like most people seem to believe, and I do like them on the spread. However, this chatter about Scott Foster, of course, is a little bit concerning. Does kind of turn this game into somewhat of a wild card, especially when you're looking at the spread. So instead, I drew my attention over towards the total. Obviously, this opened up at 209.5 points. I'm going to go with the alternate total at 207.5 points right now, minus 120 on DraftKings Sportsbook. The total right now is set at 208, so it's been bet down a little bit by the sharps, but I'm okay with sacrificing a little bit of payout to get that extra number, because with Scott Foster, for all his chatter and everything, one thing that stands out is in the year, I know the overs were hitting more frequently in the regular season, but still, the over was 43 and 25 in games refed by Foster this season. The over in this series is 3 and 2, and in 4 or 5 games in this series, the total has gone over that number, 207.5 points. And also, the last game that Foster refed, the under hit, so it's likely that the over is going to hit in this one.
All right, where are you going in this one, Tanner?
Yeah, I really like the over there, the alternate over with the efficiency from both teams from the floor. But I'm going to take a prop here. I'm going to go Kyle Lowry over 11.5 points for plus money. Lowry's actually been very good at home, averaging 11.2 points this season overall. At home in this series, shot 44% and 67% from the field. He was very good from three-point range in both those games. So I'm going to be all over Lowry for DFS and prop betting tonight. For the plus money here, you really can't beat it considering how efficient he has been.
Yeah, he scored 14-plus points in each of his last 6 home appearances against the Knicks. Not too shabby. Nick W., looking at the DK Sportsbook, what's your favorite bet in this game?
I love the Lowry call. I mean, these are the type of games that you have Kyle Lowry on the roster for. So I think he shows up tonight. I'm happy to take the Heat money line. Maybe you want to tether that to another player prop that you like, generate a little bit more value there. I'm looking at Bam Adebayo to have a double-double tonight at plus 150. He's kind of been flirting with it in just about every game throughout the playoffs, kind of always hanging around in like the 8 to 12 rebound range. I think getting that at plus 150 is pretty nice value tonight. And then I'm going to keep riding the Caleb Martin over 1.5 made threes trade, which has hit in 3 of the last 4 games. It was at plus 180 ahead of the previous game. Now it's at plus 140, but you're still getting really good value there for a guy who is basically locked into like 25 to 30 minutes a night for this team.
All right, let's move on to the other playoff game. What is your best bet for Warriors-Lakers? Lakers favored by 2.5, Tanner.
So I'm going to lay the points with the Lakers here. They're the better team. LeBron James gets a scoring star tonight. Anthony Davis. Hopefully he is on the floor and contributes there. D'Angelo Russell. The team's just better overall. When I look at Golden State, I can't trust them on the road. I think they're going to be competitive, but not enough to cover the spread. 14-33 ATS on the road in the regular season. Just 8-20 straight up its dogs, and 13-34 on the road. Really have not been good against quality opponents there. So I have no choice but to go with the Los Angeles Lakers tonight.
Lakers have covered the spread in each of their last 5 home games. Nick W., what is your best bet in this one?
I would love to say that I could trust the Lakers here. I mean, LeBron is 16-3 in home closeout games in his career. He's won 15 in a row. So the last time LeBron lost a home playoff closeout game, Steph Curry was still a sophomore at Davidson. I mean, we're going all the way back to 2008, but I don't know if it's the same version of LeBron. I mean, I don't think LeBron has that extra gear. He's just looked off these entire playoffs. He's not catching the ball well. He's fumbling the ball in transition. He's running over guys. Like, he just doesn't seem like that same player. So I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I would not be shocked with any result. I think the Warriors are going to have a really good chance, though, to push this to a 7th game. I'm sticking with player props. I do like LeBron over 5.5 assists. It's kind of been an iffy prop. It's been sitting at 5.5 throughout the playoffs. He's averaging close to 12 potential assists per game. The Lakers just aren't converting them at all that great of a clip. I think that should eventually come around in the long run. I also like LeBron over 14.5 assists plus rebounds. He's been a rebounding machine in this postseason.
Well, depending on how you feel about Anthony Davis, he's recorded 3 or more blocks in 7 of the Lakers' last 8 home games. So you can get plus money on over 2.5 at plus 140. People obviously assuming he is not going to be at full strength. Nick F., are you going with a player prop? What are we doing here?
No, but I do like a good blocks prop when you get a guy who's pretty consistent. Although Anthony Davis is not a guy who, I classify as he's not consistent. You can't trust him, and I don't trust him tonight. And because of that, I don't trust the Lakers to finish this whole thing off. The fact that Whalen can't pull the trigger on backing his guy LeBron in the full capacity makes me feel even better about this play too. So I am going with the Warriors on the money line straight up plus 125 last I checked on DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, they are a Lonnie Walker game away from being able to close out this series right now. So as much as, yes, there's no such thing as moral victories or whatever, that at least the Warriors now can go into this game knowing we blew them out at home and we should have won on the road last time we saw them. So they're due right now tonight to win another road game, and I'm backing them to do that on the money line.
All right, real quick, guys, let's check out DK Nation's sensational 6 parlay that is live on the DK Sportsbook. Tanner, what is your favorite leg of this parlay right here?
So I love the Heat money line, but I'm going to say it's a little too easy here. Curry, 25 plus points, gone over in 3 of 5 in this series, and he's the one guy that needs to have a huge night for them to advance to a Game 7.
All right, Nick F., favorite leg?
Yeah, I'm going to take the easy route here. I'm going to go with the Heat money line on this one. I just have a hard time imagining that the Knicks are going to go and pull this one off as much as Scott Foster's in the mix. It does make me a little bit more worried about the spread, but money line, I'm not worried about it.
Nick W., where are you going?
I'm going, if I'm reading this correctly, we got a Bam Adebayo alternate rebound prop at 6.5. I'm going over there. I mean, that's been a lock. He's gone over that in all but one game in the playoffs.
All right, good stuff, guys. That is a show. We will be back on Monday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy all the games.